Okay, first off, we don't want to bore you to tears. We want to keep you awake, but we're trying to keep it moving. I do have some young people to talk at the end, well, in the second half, but we'll keep it short. So first of all, I'll introduce myself. I've been involved, my name is Andrew Cox. I've been involved since 1987. I was at the first conference. I've been to 22 conferences, including this one. I run a conference in 1998. I have been president of Caretakers for 6 years, and now I'm back with my students. But I'd like to ask Wayne Shimp to talk about how it all started, and Yoko Valls will also join in on that section. And I will go through some of the people who organise conferences and some of their experiences, just so that you as students can share this, and also teachers and people who might like to run a conference themselves, you might get some experience as well. And we will have a section if you have a comment yourself. If some of you who have done conferences have a story they want to tell, feel free to do so. Okay? But we'll start the ball rolling with Wayne.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. The idea for Caretakers as the environment story started back in 1973 after I returned from a U.S. Commission for UNESCO visitation to the various environmental programs from Oslo, Stockholm, Copenhagen, Vienna, Nairobi, Johannesburg, Tanzania, Nairobi, Athens, and Bucharest, Romania, to see what the status in that part of the world was dealing with environmental education. Because I had been working with the Ford Foundation grant in order to help evolve what would become environmental education in the Chicago metropolitan area. So upon return from the fact-finding 30-day trip I was on, we hosted the first global conference for high school students on environmental education in 1973. And the U.S. teacher there was a man by the name of Mr. Ed Raditz. Now fast forward to the middle 1980s when a foreign exchange student came to Ed Raditz's biology classroom in Oak Park River Forest, and it was Arjen Walls. And he and Arjen and a science writer that Ed had been working with, Isabel Abrams, had 2 meetings to discuss a common idea that they all had, that teenagers, high school students, can learn in, about, and from the environment by actually getting out and doing. And I was teaching at the high school level at that time, and so they called my principal, asked me whether I could come to a 3rd meeting and finalize this, embryo of an idea about having a conference. And from there on, the idea developed a little bit more, and then Joke and Harry Walls from the Netherlands invited Isabel and Ed to come over to the Netherlands and to further talk about hosting a conference. So Joke will take over now.
Yes, in the same time, I was involved in an environmental education project for secondary schools from the European community. And that project ended after 5 years, but there was a little bit money left to set up another project. And in the same time, my son was in the United States for a study, and you heard the story Wayne told you. And we had contact together, and Arjen, my son, asked for, do you think you can manage schools from Europe? And my husband was asked, do you think you can facilitate a conference for young people and the teachers? And that was in that time very special because it was mostly for the teachers and sometimes only for students. And I think the combination was a very good thought, and it works until now, you know. We started in The Hague because my husband was there, the director from the green service, the garden service, and school and children gardens. So he had the possibility to not for a real accommodation, and there was also not enough money for it, but we started with caravans for the teachers and with tents for the students, very special. But it works out very, very well, and the concept of the conference is still used during the last years, and was the projects making by the students and the teacher during the year before, and the presentation had to be in English. It works very well, as you can see, because it is still there. And this gives hope for the future that it will go on and on. And I think I thought the most of the start of the conference. Maybe you can add something, bring, or do you have some questions?
So, Wayne, have you any stories from that first conference or from the first couple of conferences that you'd like to share?
Well, one story that comes to my mind is that the unique ecosystem that we discovered, that many of you know that dunelands are on the coasts around the world and everything, but Harry was interested in biorestoration and everything, and he had us walk into an area, and there was a pond in the middle, and there were all kinds of alpine and short blooming flowers and orchids and a lot of stuff like that. And he was watching our faces. For the botany people, we were just amazed in that. And then we found out what he had done was to remove the dune and go back several thousand years of time and expose the seeds and so on that had then come into bloom and hadn't been seen in the Netherlands for centuries. And so that was kind of from, if you know something about my naturalist botanical background and so on, that was a memory for me. But again, it was, well, there's just many more. So.
Yeah. Two things I remember. One was that we seemed to go everywhere on a bicycle. That was one thing I remember, and I'm sure that didn't suit Wayne too much. The other thing I remember was the fact that the very first blue flag for a harbour, the clean harbours and clean management, the very first blue flag for a harbour was awarded at that conference, as part of that conference. The other thing I remember, this was before PowerPoint. Not all presentations were on PowerPoint. And I'm one of these people who thinks we should go back to not having PowerPoint, or a balance between PowerPoint and other presentations. And that was all done by posters. You just had to bring a poster, and that was how you explained your project. So that's something just to think about, that we've gone a long way, but sometimes we go too far. maybe we need a balance. And I know there's some other people here that share that idea, that we need a little bit more emphasis perhaps on posters. I'll hand to you.
Maybe something else is maybe interesting to know, interesting to know how many countries started and from where. I can say out of Europe we only had I think 3 different countries: USA, these 2-3 schools I think, and Spain and Israel. And in Spain, Israel, yes, there are many other European countries, like Germany, Portugal, yes, also Spain, UK, Ireland. So European schools enough, but we want to have more schools. So the year after, there were many other schools not from Europe, but also from other countries.
Yes, can you perhaps explain how it came the second year to be in Spain and the third year in Chicago and the fourth year was in Bristol? Would someone like to explain that and say why that? You said it was because you were involved with big European projects. So I think Spain, the UK were both part of that project, and then Chicago was the home of Isabel and Ed and so on, and Wayne. So that's why the first 4 conferences took place in those locations. There's always a good reason why the conferences took place in a particular location.
Actually, it was also because the board members were from Spain and the UK and the States. So and the Netherlands, yes, and that's why the first 4 conferences were in those countries.
So while you have the microphone, Fatima, could you explain who you are, in case anybody missed it before, and also how you came to run the conference, 6th conference in Troia, in Portugal, and how Aspia became involved?
Yeah. Okay, so I have already told my story in one of the interviews the students from Denmark made during the course of the preparation of this conference. But I think the story is very inspiring, not only for me, but for other teachers and maybe students, but especially teachers who would like to start something more than just coming to conferences. So I came to the first conference in Spain. Actually, it was the 2nd conference in Segovia, and I was really surprised and you know, it was a very, very interesting experience that I never forget. And we, as a group of teachers who attended the conference, we decided that we would do something also in Portugal, and it had to be in an organized way. So the first network of teachers was created, and so 2 years after the first conference of caretakers, we decided to found an association, which is an NGO actually, Portuguese Association for Environmental Education. And in 1992 we became the branch of Caretakers in Portugal, and I was invited to be part of the board of Caretakers, so I'm a very old member of the board of Caretakers. But anyway, I think that when you are organized in a network or in an NGO, it's much easier for you to work, and also it is much easier for you to help other teachers who are involved and motivated to develop environmental education projects or to bring students into conferences and spread the word. So this is what I've been doing since then, and I still do. And it has been a really marvelous experience, life experience and life-changing experience for me. And my association is already 26 years old, and we keep developing projects. Some of them we presented it today. The climate is the concern of us all, but we have many projects running on and having the possibility sometimes of bringing students and teachers for free to come to conferences. But actually, you didn't ask me, but I'd like to tell you that thank you. That my interest in environment or in sustainability certainly environment is the issue, but I'm also interested in society and in what these conferences mean in terms of putting people together, getting to know one another, and creating an atmosphere, a peaceful atmosphere, and motivate people to act peacefully. And I remember two conferences which really struck me or rose my interest, and one of them was your conference, Andrew. It was the conference uniting the two, organized by the two islands, so Northern Ireland and Ireland, and it worked so well. The whole group traveled from the south to the north, and we were able to work together peacefully. This was really a very, very interesting experience. And the other experience, which was something similar to that, and it was really interesting and you know, life-changing for me as well, was the conference in Israel. And we could see people from Israel and Palestinians working together, also in a very peaceful way, and having the same concerns, teachers and students, and so this was two conferences that really struck me. Yes, moved me profoundly. Or, just one more, Costa Rica. Costa Rica was also a very interesting conference because Costa Rica, in terms of peace, it is a country with no army. And the whole country is involved in sustainability and in the conservation of nature. And this is also something that we should keep in mind as citizens of our country. Yeah.
Thank you, Pamela. I should at this stage congratulate Portugal for getting to the semi-final of the European Championships. And my congratulations to Poland. I'm sorry that you didn't make it as well. We lost in Ireland, we lost in the last round, so we didn't do so well either.